Okay, students, so today we are going to be learning about the rectangular marquee tool and the elliptical marquee tool. They are both nested within this little icon that starts out as a default as the rectangular marquee tool. So click on that, and what this tool is used for is selecting box-shaped areas. So let me zoom out for a second, and if you wanted to make a selection of these two towers with the marquee tool, you click at the point that you want to start and drag out to the point where you want that to end. Generally, I do it from top left to bottom right, and you let go. And that's your selection. So within this image now, you can do things like enhance the lighting, to modify the levels in that, pop the contrast, or you can enhance it by adjusting color, or Control U for adjust hue and saturation, and you might change the saturation in that, alter the vibrancy of it, maybe the lightness or darkness. You can colorize it if you want special effects. So there's lots of things you can do with that selection once you have it selected. Elliptical marquee tool will do the same thing but in an oval shape. So if you have you can drag it out to whatever kind of oval or circular shape you want. If you want to lock it into a perfect circular pattern, you hold Shift as you do it, and you'll see it jump back into a circle. So if you want a perfect circle, do that, and you've got your selection. Now, while you're still in selection mode, while you've still got the selection done, you'll notice that if your cursor is outside of the selection, you get the option to make another selection. Or if your cursor is inside the selection, a little arrow shows up, and that means you can move that selection around. So if you want this over here, if you actually wanted to take a circle like this, then you can move that selection around wherever you'd like it to go. Okay, so selections are movable, but don't do it with the move tool. Otherwise, you will literally take that part of the photograph out. You can only do it while you've still got one of the selection tools selected. Now, let's say I wanted to make a selection of this, I don't know, of this city hall, and I'm going to use a rectangular marquee to do it. And I'm going to grab that like that. I'm going to cut it, Control X to cut it, and I can even go up to a new blank file made from that image from clipboard, and it'll make it its own file right away. If I drag that up to the orange line, there's my file. It's got sharp edges, but if I go back to this file, and I press Control Z to undo, I can make a blurry edge around that by feathering the edge. So if I drag this feather, click and drag on the word feather over a few pixels, you'll notice that this time when I make my box and I cut it out, it's going to have a softer edge. And if I make a new blank file with that, you'll notice that weird soft edge. Oops, sorry, a file, new image from clipboard. And you'll see that the edges of that were blurred. Okay, that's feathering. That's especially helpful when you are taking something from an image and you don't want it to appear really crisp that you're taking it from an image. Control Z, like such as if I wanted some of this grass. You can do the same thing with lasso tool and feathering. If I wanted some of this grass, that's sharp, but if I feather it, I grab that, I can cut that out, and I can paste it over here. I mean, that was maybe too much of a feather. Let's go back. Control Z. Let's feather it by 6 pixels, let's say. Control X and Control V. And now I've got a more kind of fluid section in my in that grass, that it doesn't look like I just took a clump from somewhere. It's got a soft edge, so it blends in it. Now let's say, students, that I wanted to select a whole section of this image. Maybe it's a tree, maybe it's the grass. And one of the things that I can do is, with my magic wand tool and the appropriate tolerance, make a big selection of this grassy area. Now you'll notice that it's not totally selected. There's some areas that aren't, and it is possible to refine the edge once you've made a selection. So if you click on Refine Edge on this top toolbar, you'll notice it gives you a bunch of options. You could smooth out the selection by increasing that. You could feather it, so by extending it like that. or you could contract or expand it beyond what it is supposed to already be, which is at 0. You can contract it by going into the negatives or expand it by going into the positives. And that just all modifies what the selection ended up being. So you can clarify to Photoshop what it is that you want by refining the edge. Alright guys, so just to reiterate, the rectangular marquee, if you hold shift while you're dragging it out, will turn into a perfect square, which is convenient. And just watch the feather. I didn't realize I was doing a feather there. Sometimes you forget. And this can be moved using the selection tool that you're still inside the selection with. And you can also subtract from this selection, either by going up to this button here, subtract from selection, and subtracting little boxes out of that, or you can hold Alt while you're in the new selection mode. Just hold Alt, and I find that to be a quicker, maybe more efficient and professional way of working. If you hold Shift, you can add sections to that selection, so don't be realize that you might sometimes get confused about what's getting added and what's getting subtracted. You can always press Ctrl Z to undo.